Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. I'm Coach Michael Taylor, Human Potential Architect, and today's conversation is bigger than business. It's about belief. It's about identity. It's about rewriting the story of what a Black man can be. For too long, the narrative around Black men has centered on limitation, limited opportunity, limited leadership, limited wealth. But the stereotype was never the ceiling. It was the test. Today, we're sitting down with Marquel Russell, a man helping entrepreneurs scale to 7 and 8 figures. But what interests me most isn't just the revenue. It's the mindset required to move from survival to ownership, from hustle to structure, from doubt to decision. Because when a Black man builds wealth, he doesn't just change his bank account. He changes the narrative. This conversation is about expansion, leadership, and what it truly takes to embody success at the highest level. Hello, Marquel. Marquel, how are you today, man?
I am amazing, Michael. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to dive in with you.
All righty. So before we dive into your work, let's start off with a few icebreakers. First of all, name a woman who's inspired you to be who you are.
My mom.
What's her name?
My mom, Rhonda.
Rhonda.
Mhm.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Rhonda.
So my mom, God rest her soul, she passed probably, I want to say like 13 years ago now. Yep, because my MJ is 12. So 13 years ago,
Okay.
she was always entrepreneurial. She never taught me entrepreneurship. She was my first entrepreneur mentor. She never taught me entrepreneurship though. She showed me, she lived entrepreneurship, right? I dropped out of school in 10th grade. Well, not 10th, I dropped out of school in 10th grade, but before that, I got suspended for 10 days. And she, instead of letting me just sit at home, she made me go to work with her. And she was doing telemarketing. And they used to call her the Michael Jordan of telemarketing. So I sat in the the lunchroom the first couple days to like read, and she made me read this book called A Time to Kill. After that, I came out and I was just looking at the sales floor, and I was like, all y'all do is read this script. And she was like, yeah, you want to try it? She let me try it, and then I ended up buying my first car. I made $800 that week, bought my first car. But yeah, she was always entrepreneur. When I used to get in trouble at school, she used to always tell me like, you ain't been a follow up there, right? She'd be like, Russell, she's always telling me Russells are leaders. Russells are leaders. Russells are leaders. So I would say that's 100% without a hesitation.
She grilled that in you early, huh?
100%.
So name a book that you love and tell me why you love
The Bible. The
it. Okay.
Bible, because because I used to hear so much about like church and so forth growing up, and I had like mixed feelings because I just felt like it wasn't taught from a healthy place. I couldn't put words to it, but as I decided to dive into it, because I'm into like personal development books, I've read tons of them and business books. But one thing I love about the Bible is like it covers all the principles, and you can see how a lot of stuff it's been plagiarized so many times and turned into so many different things, but without giving the Bible credit. But I love the fact that it gives you the principles. It's all there. And if you get the principles and you follow the principles, And it's not about religion, it's about the principles. If you take the principle, you apply the principles, you get the results that the principle provides. And I think even when I talk to business owners and we talk about scale, it's like Jesus is the ultimate scaler. So I had to use those examples sometimes, but hands down, and I always tell people that the Bible is like a Netflix series, right? So as you read it and you unpack it, it's like it's one of those things where you can't wait till the next episode because it really unpacks it when you read it from that particular standpoint.
And do you like movies?
I love movies.
Name a movie that you love.
Coming to America.
Classic. Classic.
Classic. It's hilarious. No matter how many times you watch it, it's hilarious. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely
100.
classic. Now, I wrote a book titled The Cure for Onlyness, A Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And in the book, I talked about the unique challenges that we as black men face when we are in environments where we're the only person of color. So I'm sure you've had that experience. So how do you navigate that?
So now I navigate it where, so when I came into the world, I mean in the consulting world, I came into the online world initially, and we didn't exist. It's a lot more of us online teaching and so forth now, but it wasn't the case 15 years ago. So one thing I discovered at first I was like, I was kind of like, who's gonna listen to me? I'm the black guy, tattoos go like, are people gonna really listen to me? Because nobody looked like me. And then as I dove deeper and I began to do some personal work, I realized that everything that was different about me was actually my unique advantage. So what I began to do was and I still to this day, I extract knowledge from the spook who sat by the door. You ever read that book, The Spook Who Sat by the Door?
I heard of it, have not read it.
So my whole approach is like getting into these different rooms and different environments where we don't exist, getting the information and then bringing it back, to our people in a synthesized way where we can take it, extract it, and then share it with more of our people.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that because I've been doing this for 25 plus years myself. And when I first got started, I remember thinking, because I was doing all these workshops and seminars, and I'd be the only brother in the room. And
Yep,
man, well, where the brothers at, right? And then I said, "Oh, I get it, God. I know what you want me to do. You want me to learn so I can take it to people who look like me." Oh,
bingo.
okay. I got it. So yeah, that's you and I have very similar paths, if you will. Now, here's the last question. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future in general?
Very optimistic.
And why is that?
Because so from personal experience, I know that I'm a child of God. And I know the blueprint, I've read it, and at the end of the day, I win. Like we win. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a fixed fight. Like I win, like regardless of
The
even what it looks like in the moment, even if I feel like it doesn't look ideal, I know it's just training ground because I win. It already told me.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Now, so tell us about your company. First of all, give us the name and tell us about what your company does.
So our company is called Strategic Scale Institute, and essentially we help business owners, specifically coaches and consultants and experts. We help them scale companies that can actually run and grow without them. Because a lot of times we can start businesses and we think we're running a business, but the business is actually running us, and we're sacrificing time with all the people that matter the most, our kids, our families. We're sacrificing our health, our relationships with God, the whole nine. But it's like, how do you actually build a company that can run and grow without you? So if you took a 7-day, 30-day, 60-day vacation, would your business completely implode or would it really still grow and exceed, without you? So that's what Strategic Scale Institute is all about.
So tell me, how did you get involved with that aspect of a business?
So the first company we scaled was called Client Attraction University, and it was all about helping business owners acquire clients. And we scaled that company, became an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company, the whole 9 yards. And what I discovered, I thought in that season, scale was just about more, getting bigger, growing faster, getting more clients. So I taught from that particular standpoint. And then I didn't realize that I was great at making money, but I didn't know enough. I thought I knew how to grow a company, but I really knew how to make money. And growing a company was a whole nother thing. So in that, I knew that I've discovered that scale is not about just making money. It's about, company culture. It's about scale really means duplication and multiplication, not just more, bigger, faster, faster, faster. So it's like, how do you build and lead teams? Like, how do you create culture? How do you do all the different things? Like, how do you structure companies? What from an entity structure standpoint, and all these different things. Because again, I don't have a business background, traditional business background. I have like an MBA or none of those type of things. So I had to learn it all traditionally, and nobody's really teaching it. So I was like, okay, all these lessons I'm learning about how do you really build a company, and then number one, how do you create an operating system for the CEO? Because if the business owner is burnt out, the business owner is exhausted, and they're on their last leg, you can't lead a company from that particular standpoint. And also doing that inner work, because I also realized that I look back and I was like, man, we've made millions of dollars. We've helped our clients generate an estimated billion. We've done all the different things. I've scratched off all of my goals. But then I had to come to a realization that I've built all of this from a place of survival, from a place of running from something. And it was just from a place of anxiousness. Like yeah, I say I got this grand vision, but in reality, I'm just running from that little boy who grew up on syrup sandwiches and sugar water and MREs, and who wanted to get Jordans, but my aunt who raised me into a third grade who smoked crack couldn't afford them. I never wanted to be that, never wanted my kids to be that. So I was just running from that as fast as I could. And then you get to a point where you've accomplished all the things, and now it's just about protecting those things. So it's just out of scarcity and survival and all these things, and it's just not a healthy place. So in this new building of Strategic Scale Institute. It's about having this operating system for the CEO as well. So now you're building from abundance, you're building from success, not for success, not for abundance. You're moving from that place. So the energy that you're building around is from a healed place. Because if you just make more money, it's just going to expose all the holes. It's just going to expose all the unhealed areas. And my therapist always says, um, money only solves money problems. Once you make the money, you're stuck with all the problems money can't solve. So it's like strategic scale is about all building this holistic success where you can build something meaningful without, sacrificing all the things you want that really mean the most to you.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a quote that someone said. It says, "We all have a God-shaped hole in our soul, and the only
Bingo.
thing that can fill that is God. And if you fill it with something else, it only makes the hole bigger."
That's it. That's so good.
So,
That's
yeah,
so
so
good.
I love that quote, and I think that's where you're coming from.
Yep.
So, what caught my eye about you, and you mentioned this briefly in the intro, is that I saw you on LinkedIn, and you made a comment about being a ninth grade dropout. So let's kind of go back a little bit. Let's go back to that ninth grader
Mhm.
and tell us a little bit about that story from how you went from that ninth grade dropout to where you are today.
So I so I was in 10th grade. I was driving to school. I told y'all about my car, where I bought, my car from telemarket. That was a 1988. It was a 1984 Delta 88. So I was driving to school. I was smoking weed. I had just got bored with school. Like I didn't drop out of school because I was dumb. I was really good at school when I was interested, but I got to the point where it was just boring me. I knew I wanted to be a millionaire, and at this point I was taking algebra 2. And I was just like, I just didn't really see how algebra 2 was going to get me to where I wanted to be. It was just like super boring. I was making money. I was the guy. I was cool. I was the guy who had the weed. So I played sports and stuff like that, but people knew, okay, Marquel got the weed. If you want to smoke and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm making money. I'm doing my thing. It's like, I don't really understand the purpose of being here. So I would leave school. They start calling my mom. My mom told me one day, she was like, hey, these people keep calling me. I'm at work. She was like, if you're not gonna go, just don't go. So I was like, hmm. So I went to school one day and I was in ROTC and I skipped ROTC that day. I was in the cafeteria just hanging out and had a run-in with an administrator. He said something out of the way to me. I'm like, hey man, you ain't my dad, blah, blah, blah. So I went on the whole thing, and that was my last day of school. And now I went full time in the street. So I helped, I was my niece, well, she was actually my little cousin. She was like 2. So I actually used to be at home with her, watching her while I was at home. And then, my guys who was at school and they was leaving school, they wanted to come get weed. They would see me or whatever. But I was already dabbling with starting a record label because I knew people who rapped, knew people who did beats. And so I was doing some of that while I was, selling drugs. When I turned 19, I had my first son, but I was in jail when he was born. And I was like, my dad wasn't around when I was growing up, so I got to do something different. So I got out. I was like, I'm gonna get me 2 jobs because I need to make, a lot of money. Because I'm like, well, if I get two jobs, I'll make more money, right? It's my logic. So I got a job. A buddy of mine got me a job at this place called Petro, where you change oil and tires on 18 wheelers. So I did that for like 2 weeks. I was covered in oil every day. I literally couldn't even get it off of me, no matter how many showers. I was like, this is crazy. I can't do this. And I got a check one week. Well, one day I looked at the price thing and they made three. I did the math because I always been a math guy, and I was like, man, they make $300 an hour off the work that I do. I get paid $8 an hour, and they take taxes out of it. I was like, man, I can make these $6 at home. I can figure some out. So that was me justifying just going back to what I knew. So I went back into the streets. Went out. I was doing making money in the streets, and I was using the money to start an entertainment label where I was taking people who rap, people who did beats, and then bringing them together to start this label because I didn't want to be famous, but I wanted to make money that I saw that could come with it. So I started doing that. I rented out a storefront because my mom had a clothing store. Next door, the space was open. It was a hair salon. And I was like, hey, do you think Doc will let me get? There was an older white guy. He was like, do you think Doc will let me rent that out? And she was like, well, yeah, if you're gonna pay the rent. So I rented it out. I'm around like 1920-ish or something like that. Probably like, yeah, like 1920. And I rented it out and we stripped the whole thing out, turned it into a studio. That led us to being in the club every night because in Atlanta, I'm sure similar to where you are, it's like when it comes to the music scene, the club scene drives the music scene. So we used to be in the club every night, and Atlanta is like super popular for strip clubs. So we was like, that's where you take your record if you want to break a record. So we was in the clubs all the time. I'm 19, 20 years old. So I got a whole crew of people with me who are my age, some maybe a little older, some a little bit younger. And then one day, a buddy of mine calls me and he's like, hey man, my cousin is opening this club and he's looking for some guys to do some club promotion. I want to introduce you to him. So I don't know anything about club promotions, and I went. I went to the meeting, and one thing I heard my client Crystal say, and I can totally resonate with, is that my yes has always been more powerful than my gift. Like I've always been willing to step out and figure it out. So I went to this meeting with my guy Angelo, and he gave me the opportunity to, promote the club. I was like, "What do I get the bar? Like, how does this work?" And he was like, "Well, no, you don't get the bar." He was like, "Y'all can get the door, and you pick one of the slower nights." And then y'all drive all the traffic and you keep the door. And I was like, cool. So we started Get To It Tuesdays. What was Get To It Thursdays? And we went out of near promotion. We passing out flyers hand to hand. And one night I'm at a buddy of mine's mixtape release party. So I go to the mixtape release party. I'm hanging out in there, and the guy walks up to me. I was familiar to him. He was a little bit familiar, and he was like, "Hey, how many people do you know got a cell phone?" And I was like, well, everybody I know has a cell phone. And he was like, well, what if every time they paid their bill, you got paid? And I was like, well, that'd be cool. And he was like, well, one of my mentors is going to be in town and they're millionaires and they're looking to expand in the area. So I'm like, all right. So I went to this meeting and they start breaking down video phone technology, where it was going, VoIP, which is voice over internet protocol, where it was going. And it was like, imagine being in a room when Google started or when Facebook started or when Amazon started. Like, this is that opportunity. It's a ground floor opportunity. All you got to do is get to it, and they'll get to it, and they'll get to it, and they'll get to it. And little did I know this was a network marketing opportunity. So I'm like, I can definitely get two, right? 'Cause my brother was with me. I was like, I put down half of him to get started. So I had my one. I started sharing it with everybody else, club promoters, like everybody who I knew, because I knew a lot of people. I'm like, this is my city. I'm gonna kill this. Everybody was telling me it's a pyramid scheme. This ain't gonna work. Blah, 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 blah. My mom goes back to my mom again. I sent it to her. She's always been a hustler. So if it was a scam or something, she would know. I sent a video to her for her to watch it. She called me back and she was like, hey, if you can market yourself, it can work. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started doing it, still wasn't working out the way I wanted to work. My mentor who signed me up, we call it my upline, I had really quit because nobody, I tried to get my grandma wanted the service, it didn't work out. Nobody wouldn't sign up. So I was like, all right, it's $500. All right, whatever. We spend that in the club. I'll make that back. But my upline invited me to the conference that they were doing. Because if you know anything about network marketing, they do like these quarterly live conferences. So I went to the conference and it was like all these black people in there, thousands of black people there. And they're talking about how they're making all this money and how they're doing this. And I'm like, they could have tricked me. But I'm like, there's no way they could have tricked all these people. It got to be something to it. So I came out of it. I don't know, whatever it was. I came and started signing some people up. One of the ladies who signed me up, who I signed up, she sent me a video series a couple weeks after I signed her up, and it talked about how to build a network marketing organization without doing home parties and home meetings. And this guy said he had made $25 million and blah, blah, blah. So I watched this 4-part video series. I read this sales letter about 100 times, and I bought this ebook for $40. It was called Magnetic Sponsoring. And I was like, and I just went down this rabbit hole. And I was like, man, these white boys making all this money on the internet. I'm like, this is correct. My partner who I did club promotion with, he was on Facebook because he was a college guy. Because college people got Facebook first. But I wasn't on social media because the life I was living, you don't post that on social media. It's like telling on yourself. But he was handling our social media. And I'm like, man, these white boys making all this money online. This is crazy. And they're teaching you how to do it for a few $100. I'm like, this is crazy. So I start buying all this stuff. And then one thing he told me in this course was that, hey, if you sell a network marketing opportunity, your ideal client is people who buy network marketing opportunities. So he was like, the best way you attract them is to lead with value and show them how to solve their network marketing growth challenges. So he was like, if you share this book with them, they pay $40, I'll give you $20 off each book you sell. It was an affiliate program. So I'll start doing that. That's how I made my first $20 online. I was like, man, if I can make $20, I can make 20 million. So I was like, if I just lock in on this, and he started teaching us affiliate marketing, all different types of stuff. So fast forward, I discovered that my gift was teaching. And I had a teaching gift, and I was gifted in taking complicated concepts and making stuff simple, because a lot of people was teaching, but they were making it very complicated, it seemed like. So I was breaking it down to the studs and like sharing it in little short YouTube videos. It's like 16 years ago. And people was like getting value. And then fast forward, people started asking me to coach them. I didn't know coaching was a thing, but if apparently it was. So I started a coaching business, started coaching people here and there, had my first $10,000 a month, which was the holy grail at that particular point. And then I found out that the biggest challenge business owners have is lead generation. So I really planted my flag in teaching lead generation, which then grew into, okay, now we got to show them how to convert these leads into clients. So that's what birthed Client Attraction University, which became an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. And then from there, I discovered that, I don't know anything. So during this, I had to learn how to scale a business. So I was like, we need to create a holistic solution on showing business owners how to actually scale their companies, which of course now brings us here.
Nice.
Mhm.
I love that story for several reasons. First of all, I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade.
Wow.
And I dropped out in 11th grade because I convinced myself I could get rich selling vacuum cleaners.
Mm. Mhm. Was it Kirby?
No, it's called Rainbow.
Ah.
Called Rainbow vacuum cleaners back in the day. This was back in the 70s. Yeah, 70s actually. But anyway, that's what I love about your story. And what this whole podcast is about is shattering stereotypes. Because again, as Black men, we see all the negative stories, and a lot of us may not recognize, because I'm an optimist. That's the lens through which I see the world.
Mhm.
And the lens I see is that anything's possible. And
Yeah.
you talked about your mom, and that's what my mom taught me from a very, very early age. And this was the line that she told me that I will remember for the rest of my life. She said, Michael, now you got to remember, I was born in the inner city projects of Corpus Christi, Texas, to a single mom with 6 kids, and we were basically the poster children for poverty. But
Mhm.
my mom said this, Michael, if you want something badly enough, there's no one or no thing that can keep you from accomplishing it except yourself.
Yeah.
That simple line literally shaped my whole thinking, my whole mental construction. That's just how I've moved through the world. If I want it badly enough, nobody
Mhm.
can stop me. And that's kind of what I love about your story. It had nothing to do, we talk about, well, there's so many excuses that people can use. I don't have
Mhm.
an education. I'm Black.
Yeah.
I don't have connections. But
Yeah.
yet, all those things you had against you, if you will. But at the same time, you said, no, if I want it badly enough, I can make it happen. And that's exactly what you've done. So again,
Mhm.
I'm truly inspired by your story. So let's dive into a few questions just to kind of get the podcast rolling. So when you think about the stereotypes that, often surround Black men and
Mhm.
money and leadership and entrepreneurship, which ones did you personally have to overcome?
Man, I think all of them. So I think so for me, a big one was when I first started like getting invited to, or I got first started getting opportunities, especially coming from the network marketing world, and we was like, essentially we was indoctrinated in like wearing suits and stuff like that. I thought that I had to wear suits to like speak on stages or for people to take me serious or that or to look professional. So I even when I broke off from network marketing, I was still like in suits or I would have like a blazer and some slacks and like some, loafers on. And I realized that, oh wow, I can actually wear a hoodie or I can wear, a polo or a t-shirt or Air Force Ones. So like I can actually just show up authentically me and I didn't have to wear a costume, so to speak, or a uniform, so to speak, for people to take me serious. So I think that's one of the biggest ones of like me. I could literally show up just as me. And again, I believe also I'm super underrated, I am underestimated, right? And people typically tell me, man, like you're very unassuming. Like you can't really. It's like you're more than meets the eye. It's like people don't really. Sometimes people will see me at an event and they'll think that I'm just like the help or I'm just there, and then I get invited to the stage to speak, and they're like, oh, this guy's keynoting the event. So it's like some of that type of stuff, but it's like our people typically are still dealing with that type of stereotype as well when they see black men was like they have to look a certain type of way to be esteemed or be some like, oh, they're not professional because he got his hat on turned to the back or he has gold teeth or he got tattoos or he got a hoodie on, like he can't be professional. I can't take him serious because I've been told this particular thing. So I would probably say that's the professionalism stereotype is probably one of the biggest ones for sure.
And I love that concept in terms of, especially as black men, when we know who we are no longer bound by what society says we're supposed to be,
Yeah.
no longer bound by stereotypes. And the fact that you were able to say, look, this is who I am. I can wear my hoodie and still show up and shine. I
Yeah.
can wear my Air Force Ones and still teach and coach. So I love how you've taken the idea that who I am determines the impact that I have on other people. And you're
Mhm.
not concerned with how people see you
Mhm.
because you know how you show up, which is
Mhm.
a really, really powerful place to be.
Mhm.
So, was there ever a moment when you realized that, you were just thinking too small about your own potential?
Yeah, I think there's yeah, all the like not all the time, but I can see it at different levels, right? So it's like early on, especially coming from the online business world, I used to think that I had an online business. And it wasn't, then at one point I had a shift where I was like, no, I don't have an online business. I actually have a real company, no different than an Apple or Microsoft or any of those type of things. I just run it virtually from the comfort of my home, but it's no different than these other entities, right? So that was one. I was like, wow, I didn't think about. I was thinking way too small about this. Also, fast forward, a buddy of mine, he has and this is like more recent over the last couple of years. He's in the private equity world. He owns 50% of a private equity firm. And he was like, Marquel, he was like, you professionalize businesses. And I was to this point, I had never I never heard that word until he told me. And he was like, basically, us on the private equity side, we're always looking for businesses that we can acquire, that we can either acquire or we can fund. But he was like, we don't get it was like our biggest constraint is pipeline of deal flow of businesses who are ready to be acquired or ready to be funded. He was like, you actually help them do that. So he was like, you can actually get an LP stakes in these companies and then bring them to us for us to acquire or for us to fund, and you can actually participate in the upside. He was like, the consulting fees, the coaching fees, and so forth are great, but he was like, you can actually partner in with these, build portfolios, do roll-ups, and then exit some of these companies or some of these portfolios and have a 20, 30, 40, $50 million exit just on your ownership stakes. And I was like, wow. And I was like, that's fascinating. And I saw how everything connected where it was like, okay, when I did network marketing, that helped me overcome my fear of public speaking. So now I can actually speak on stages, do events, hold space, do those type of things. And now as a result of us helping grow companies and scale companies and do it for ourselves, it's like, oh, this is now our next maturation of building portfolios of companies. So now we've like, okay, yeah, we do consulting and so forth, but a lot of it is to do deal flow, get deal flow rather, where now we can actually partner and build out this portfolio of companies where now those who do want to sell or those who want to do another thing, we can actually help them go to another level. But again, that was stuff that wasn't even on my frame of reference. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine and I was like, well, part of our vision right now is to build a portfolio of companies that does $1 billion in revenue. We have a newsletter called My First Billion, one basically documenting the whole process. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, all right, I'm a math guy, so I'm trying to reverse engineer what this looks like. And he was like, you're not going to be able to reverse engineer it because it's not a linear process. He was like, one phase of growing a business is linear. You want to get to 1 million, it's pretty linear. A couple million is pretty linear. But he was like, going to 1 billion is not linear, it's exponential. Because he was like, you might have two companies that take up the majority of that, and then you might have 10 other companies that do XYZ. So it's not a linear, like, hey, I get X amount of companies, all these companies evenly do this. He's like, it doesn't work like that. But because he was like, as you do deals, as you do exits, it almost has like a compounding effect where you could pop out just like overnight. And I looked at guys like Jay-Z and other individuals, specifically Jay-Z, is like Jay-Z didn't become a billionaire because he built one company to 1 billion. He became a billionaire because he has a portfolio of companies, similar to LeBron James, Robert Smith, and those other individuals. And it's an exponential aspect. But again, I wasn't thinking big enough as it relates to that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, so are you into like angel investing too? Is that kind of your thing too?
So not just yet. I haven't done really angel investing as of
Okay.
yet. It's been more so just looking for a lot of times we look at like partnerships who we're helping grow and scale. And then it's like, okay, well, who are the best operators that are trustworthy, that we can potentially link arms with, and then helping them grow and scale. So that's essentially where we are now. But so we haven't done any angel investing, at least as of yet.
Got you. So think about this question. What internal belief had to shift before your external success began to scale?
So one thing was that there's so many. I would say one of the guys I used to listen to early on is a gentleman named Jim Rohn.
Hmm.
And one thing I heard him say was that I think he said wages make you a living, but profits make you a fortune.
Mm,
And then he talked about how you don't get paid based on the hour, you get paid based on the value that you bring to the hour. So it's like, well, if you work at Wendy's and you make $15 an hour, well, you can protest for higher wages, or you can figure out how do I bring more value to the hour? Because you're not getting paid based on so you're obviously we're all infinitely valuable in the eyes of God. We're children of God. We're all infinitely valuable. But in the marketplace, we're not all equally valuable, right? It's based on what can we quantify value-wise. So it's like, well, you make $15 an hour. How can you become 10 times more valuable to the hour? So now you make 150 an hour. How can you become 1,000 times more valuable to the hour? So just having that shift. And one I heard a mentor say earlier, he was like, you get paid in direct correlation to the amount of value that you bring to the marketplace, right? So it's like if you want to create more value, what are you sowing into the marketplace? So at that point, I was like, okay, how can I out educate the market? So that's when I really doubled down on creating content, going all in, and teaching individuals and just out teaching everyone else in the marketplace. So I would say that was one of my first shifts that I had early on.
mm. Now, you help entrepreneurs scale, 7 and 8 figures, right?
Mhm.
So, what mindset difference separates those who stay stuck from those who really expand to hit those 7 and 8 figures?
So I would say one of the biggest things is like shifting from being an entrepreneur and a business owner, because it's two different things, right? So I like to say all CEOs aren't entrepreneurs and all entrepreneurs aren't CEOs. Because like some entrepreneurs, they know they want to stay in the entrepreneurial creative vein and they just want to be serial entrepreneurs, so they hire a CEO. And the CEO essentially didn't build it, didn't start it, right? But they can maintain it based on their skill set. So I think making that shift from I'm a business owner, Because an entrepreneur can make money really well. You can create money, you can start new things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But being a business owner who has an entity that has moving parts, and a business is a complex system. It's literally a system of systems, right? So I like to use example of like a washing machine. So the washing machine has multiple different systems, right? And then based on all these systems working together, you get clean clothes. So it's like your business is the same thing. Where it's like you got a marketing system, you got a sales system, you got a delivery system, you got a financial system. So all these things have to work together, and it can be chaotic. So now the business owner has to bring some structure to this chaos, or at least has to hire somebody who can bring structure to this chaos. The biggest thing that I find that keeps many entrepreneurs and founders stuck though is the willingness to actually let go,
Mm.
because and it goes back to some of those childhood wounds. A interesting shift that I had a few years ago was that a lot of times entrepreneurs, we start businesses out as a trauma response. So
Hmm.
it's like we grew up, we didn't have much money, we didn't want to go back to it, our parents told us no, or we got laughed at about our shoes, or we got laid off from a job, or whatever the case may be, and now we go off and we're like, let's start a business, we become entrepreneurs. And this is, we never dealt with that trauma though. We just thought making more money was going to fix it, but making more money is just going to expose these wounds. So now we start a business, and now we can't trust people. We can't trust team members because now we're like, well, what if I hire people and I teach them my stuff and then they leave? And it's like, well, what if you hire them and you don't train them and then they stay? Then you deal with that. Or now it's like, well, this is my baby. Or now it's like, oh, I'm building this team because my team is my family. And I made this mistake where I was like, my team is my family. And I realized, well, your team isn't your family, your team is your team. But I realized I had to look back at some of my childhood wounds where it was like I didn't grow up in a tight-knit family. So I found myself trying to create a family within my business because I didn't have that growing up. So again, I had to understand these shifts, and I understand, okay, here's why I don't trust in these particular areas. Here's why I won't let go in these particular areas. Because again, an entrepreneur might be like, well, if I trust people and they drop the ball, I can lose my whole business. And now I go back to not having anything like I was at one point. Or now I go back to here like I was at one point. Or they're like, well, they are addicted to being needed. So they're like, well, Marquel, what do you mean systemize things where I can take more days off? I'm like, well, if I'm off and I'm not growing the business, I get all my significance from the business. I get all my significance from doing all the things. So if I'm not doing these things no more, now who am I? I had to go through a similar transition. I was like, because especially when God was calling me more into teaching in the church, my identity was rooted in I'm a business guy. Like I can tie like the scripture and so forth into the business, but it's like that ain't really my thing. And God had to show me like, no, your gift of teaching, you're a teacher. You use it in business, but you're called to use it here as well. But my identity was rooted in here. And then when I went through like challenging seasons in business, my identity was rooted in the success that I had built in the business that I had built. That was my identity. So when that was shaken, my identity was shaken because it was all rooted in that. And then God had to show me like my identity is a child of God, right? First and foremost, my identity isn't an entrepreneur because I say I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is like, no, entrepreneurship is just what you do. It's one of the things you do. You being a dad, that's just one of the things that you do. Because if I think my identity has been a dad, when my kids go off and do their own thing, and I'm used to doing, it's like, then what? Because I work with adults, and it's like their kids are going off doing their own life, and now they're trying to figure out who am I? My whole life has been made up in this, right? Or I speak with guys who they're divorced and now they're like, man, my identity was being a husband, being a provider, being a protector to my wife. I'm divorced now. Like, who am I? You know what I'm saying? So we had to go through some of those things where it's like, here's my identity separate from the business. Because if we think our identity is the business and doing the things and being attached to everything, it's going to be very hard to step away from it and let the business become its own thing. And this is where we slip into workaholism and being a workaholic and can't turn off, going on vacation and trying to find Wi-Fi because you need to be working, like all the different things, because now your anxiousness is like, I can't take my eyes off the ball because if this thing falls down, I'm gonna go back to that 5-year-old who couldn't get a nice pair of shoes because my mom didn't have money. So we start reliving all that and start catastrophizing. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
again, this is all like it's crazy because this is all like on the core level that like we ain't thinking about this consciously, but subconsciously, and it don't matter how much money you make. I was watching an interview the other day of Kevin Hart. He was on the Diary of the CEO, and Steven asked him, he was like, "Hey man, this is Kevin Hart. Like Kevin Hart killing it, by any society's measure." And he was like, "Hey, do you fear it all going away?" And Kevin Hart was like, "Yeah." He was like, "This is why I go so hard." Right? Because part of him is still like, if this all goes away, then I got to go back to this person. And then where's my significance going to be? And then the shame and everything that's going to come with that. And me having to take this to my kids and all this, because it's like, I got to keep running. Will Smith said the same thing. He was like, part of your life is like you building and you chasing. And then once you get it, the second part is trying to protect it and not let it, go away. So it's like this crazy anxiousness in our identity is like rooted into all this. And it's tough if the business owner doesn't release all of that. It's going to be tough to scale it. And if they do get to the point, they're never going to be fulfilled because there's no rest. And they just have this rest. They have this soul where they don't get any good rest. They're burnt out. They're stressed out. They're anxious. They got the money. They got the cars. They got the house and all that stuff, but they're still exhausted. Does it matter? That was a super long answer to your question. Does that make sense though?
No, but that's the challenge with entrepreneurs these days, because a lot of times what happens, and I'm glad you brought that point up about dealing with the internal lack of identity, because too many times we hide behind the things that we do.
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs, again, a lot of entrepreneurs are very, very successful because they're driven by a sense of shame. And
Hmm.
that the way they try to overcome that shame is by being successful.
Yeah.
And so when they get successful, they still got the shame.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to figure out ways to move through the shame. But if you don't deal with the shame, no matter how much success you have, you're still going to be filled with that negative energy of shame. And
Yeah.
so it begins with healing that, which I really, really agree with, because I wrote a book called The New Face of Entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And I dive into that whole concept about it's not about building the business as much as it is about becoming the person who
Yeah.
can build a business.
Yeah.
It's all about doing the inner work. So that's really, really a powerful point that, especially as entrepreneurs and especially as men of color,
Yeah.
we got to be willing to look at that,
Yeah.
because this has nothing to do with ethnicity. It has
Yeah.
everything to do with who we are as human beings.
Bingo.
And we have to go deeper to figure out what's really driving our success sometimes. And a lot of us aren't willing to go there. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Agreed.
So did you ever struggle with imposter syndrome?
I went so I don't know if I would use the word imposter syndrome. I think I would probably say there has been times where I was like I mentioned early on when I was like, who's gonna listen to me? Like, I'm the guy, dropped out of high school in 10th grade from Atlanta, so I talk a little fast. I don't look like any of these individuals. Like early on when I was network marketing, people's story was, they was in the real estate, they lost everything with real estate, they stepped into network marketing, so they did all these things, or they was in corporate America, or they did all these things, and it was like none of that was my story, right? And I was like, I'm totally opposite of these individuals. So I think some part of me sometimes was like who's going to listen to me, right?
Mhm.
Or so I had some of those type of
Yeah.
beliefs, and like again, in these different rooms and the levels I've been able to play at is like very few individuals that look like me, and then even when those individuals who do look like me, it's almost on some like who is this guy to be in here, as well, and then it's like, all right, well, I'd rather go work with our other counterparts, which is fine. So it's still some of that type of stuff, like William Lynch syndrome type energy, as well. So it's one of those fascinating things, but it's like, I think this is why it's super important to be doing the personal work, the inner work, the spiritual work, the deeper work, because I've had to uproot a lot of that through things like therapy and seeing like, dang, a lot of the stuff I'm doing because of I'm seeking affirmation.
Yeah.
right? I didn't get affirmed, growing up in many respects, right?
Yeah.
So like just dealing with like some of that stuff. So I think some of that stuff has come up, and yeah.
Nice. Now, as a high-performing black man, do you ever feel pressure to represent more than just yourself?
Um, I I have. However, I think I my biggest focus, so like over the past 18 months or so, I've I'm more clear than ever on my purpose, right? And I think that purpose can be one of those ambiguous terms, right? But I'm clearer than ever again after like actually unpacking the Bible for myself. It helps me become clear over it. So now I know the biggest thing that my goal is to do is to be a representative of the kingdom, right? And be a representative of God because that's what I was created to do. So it's not necessarily when people see me, I'm not a representation of Black culture by any means, right? Or because that's one of those things that can be ambiguous. Like, what does that mean? But I'm a representative. When I'm going into a room, I am a representative of the kingdom, right? And that's how I want to show up. Now, am I perfect? No. But am I always being perfected? Yes.
Nice. Now, you said something that really struck me. My primary focus has been on the changing roles of manhood and masculinity. That's my area of expertise, if you will, and I do a lot of work around masculinity. And you mentioned that you would never work with or hire a man who cheats on his wife.
Okay.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I don't work with men who cheat on their spouses because integrity is like super important to me. And then like some people might be like, well, Marco, you was in the street selling drugs and all that. Like how? It's like, well, even when I was in the streets, a lot of the morals and everything that subscribe to in the streets, I brought into legitimate business because everything is transferable. So it's like a lack of integrity in the streets can get you killed, right? Not so when I came into the coaching world and people was like selling people coaching for 5, 10, 15, $25,000 or more and they weren't delivering, I'm like, man, you can get killed where I'm from for less than that. So like delivery is super important. So even in the streets, it's like if I'm telling you it's something, or if I'm selling you something, or whatever it has to be, we have to be in alignment on what it is. So it's like if somebody can lay next to the person that they stood before God with and committed the rest of their lives to, and they can cheat on that person, like who am I? Like, how can I trust them? It's like your wife, your partner in life can't trust you. How can I trust you? It's like I would be foolish to set myself up and think that we're doing business based on honor and integrity if I know you're not a person of honor and integrity. Somebody can say I'm of honor and integrity, but it's like you've shown me that you're not a person of honor and integrity. So I love what Jesus said. So somebody can say they have faith. But one of the things I heard Jesus say is that I see your faith. Like you can see somebody's faith. Somebody can say they have faith,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, you can see somebody's faith. It's like, well, if you got integrity, like I see your integrity. I see how you are with your kids. I see how you are with your wife. I see how you are in your business dealings. If you now, do we need to be perfect? No. But it's like I see when you fall short, you honor it and own up to it. Right? Or
Yeah.
these different things. So I'm seeing that. You can tell me anything. But it's like I see it. I see it, bro, that you're not faithful to your wife. It's like I see that. So you can't tell me your integrity you're a man of integrity on the other side. It's like that doesn't even make sense. And if just me seeing the amount of money we can make or a bigger opportunity, I'm willing to shut my eyes to that just for a bag. It's like, what does that say about me?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reminded of the saying that says, what you are doing speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying.
Bingo. Bingo.
So, so that's, that's a really powerful comment because you can say a lot of stuff, but
Bingo.
your actions speak louder than your words for sure.
Everything. Everything.
And again, I think once again, that's another conversation, especially us as men of color have to have a conversation about because there's this stereotype that as black men, we can't be monogamous.
Hmm.
And I personally been blissfully married for the past 23 years, been with my wife 25 years,
Congratulations.
and can't even imagine, stepping out on my wife because I love her that much. I mean, it's
Exactly.
just don't need nobody else. But again, I think in terms of success and entrepreneurship, and so as Black men, you may have heard this word or this before. It says, um, how's it go? Let me think about this. I got several quotes going through my head right now. But we want to make sure that success isn't about what's outside of us.
Hmm.
Success is really about what's in us,
Yep.
and integrity and
Yep.
honesty. Those are
Yep.
the things that create who we are, our moral character. That's where true success comes from. That's
Bingo.
what that's what I believe. So
100%.
if a young Black man watching this believes, people like me don't build empires, what would you say directly to him?
If a young Black man is watching this and they're saying people like me don't build empires, what would I say to them? Correct?
Yep,
I would say take a second to do your history. Um, and not Black history like traditional Black history like we've been taught in school. Because in America, if we're not careful, we can be led to believe that our history starts in slavery. And that's not the case. But if we actually go look at our history and our ancestors, our DNA is built on building empires, right?
absolutely.
Like it's literally in your DNA to build an empire. And even when you think about the word of God, and the first thing God told us to do was multiply and have dominion. Dominion means like all of us, so typically we have like this pull inside of us. We have this idea, we want to go bigger with it. That's called that's a dominion mandate. It's like you're called to build an empire based on what you're uniquely called to do. So it's like it's literally what you're called. Now, this could look twofold. This could be you specifically building something, an empire from scratch, or you might be a person who partners with somebody who has a vision for a big empire, and you bring your skill set to help build that. But don't necessarily mean you got to build number from scratch. You might be like, well, I'm not a creative, I don't do creative, I can do that, but I have a skill set, whether that's marketing or communication or coding or technology or whatever. You're like, well, let me go partner like Steve Jobs. He partnered with a guy. He had a part, he did something. Wozniak did something, and now they built something. Microsoft, Bill Gates, his guy Paul, they came together. They built something. Jay-Z, his squad, they came together. They built something based on their unique skill sets. LeBron, Mav, Rich Paul, they all came together and based on their particular skill sets. But it's like you might not be the front person, but you do have something to bring, and just know that your DNA, your blood, literally pumps with the DNA of empire builders.
Yeah. And
But
so,
again, this goes back to what you said earlier. We have to get clear on who we are, not what we do, right? So, like, I had a conversation with some guys one time, and we've been told that, well, you as a man, you're supposed to provide and protect. So then a brother goes through a season where he can't provide and protect for whatever reason. It's like, well, now who am I? Well, it's like, brother, God ain't tell you that you're supposed to provide and protect anyway. God said he's the provider and the protector. You're supposed to be and show up in this particular way. So society will put all these things on us we're never called to take on anyway. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta align like, who am I outside of what I do, outside of the money I make, outside of my credentials, outside of my mom telling me I should go do this, or my dad telling me this, or the hood telling me this, like, who am I at my essence?
yep,
And then operate like Jesus. I think one of the reasons Jesus was so powerful, one of many reasons, is that Jesus didn't operate for affirmation. When everybody was telling him that you can't be this and you ain't this and you ain't this, God had already told him before he did any public ministry, before he healed anybody. God said, this is my son whom I'm well pleased. And then he operated from affirmation versus for affirmation. So the brother who watching this, I want to tell you that you are God's son and he's already pleased. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to accomplish anything else. God is already pleased with you. So now operate from that place.
Yeah. And so that leads to this next point. And the reason that I launched this podcast and this whole movement is how important is visibility? So, does seeing successful black men change belief systems? Because I think that this has been my argument forever. So many times in mainstream media, I hear the media say there's a lack of black male role models.
Yeah.
There's never been a lack of black male role models ever
Never,
in this
never,
country. There's just
never.
never been exposure.
Yep.
So rather than point fingers and place blame on racism, I said, why not create a platform that provides positive black male role models? And that's what Shatter the Stereotypes is all about.
Yep.
So, from your perspective, how important is it for other black men to see successful black men?
It's everything. Think about it. We we typically, as young black men growing up in our different environments, typically we want to go be what we see. So it's like we want to go to the NBA because we see black men in the NBA. We want to go to the NFL because we see black men in the NFL, or we want to rap because we see black men rapping, or maybe act. However, one thing that we don't see is black men owning sports teams. We don't see black men sports agents. Imagine a brother like Rich Paul. I got a wall right here with like black business icons. Imagine a brother like Rich Paul. Rich Paul is a sport agent. He's the founder of Clutch Sports. He has LeBron James as a client. He has other, I think, what's my man name who was at the Lakers with LeBron? I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. But anyway, he has a roster of players in the NBA, and I think he's in the NFL. He got some players in the NFL and so forth and so on. He gets paid off of all these different teams and doesn't touch a ball, right? So it's like but we don't hear about these type of individuals. We only see. We don't think about how can we own the. Yeah, you can go play for the team. That's cool. But it's like who's owning the team, right? The wealthiest Black American. I think he said. I think they call him the wealthiest Black man in American history is Robert Smith. He owns a company called um, Vista Equities, right? He's in the private equity space, and they acquire enterprise of software companies. He
Yeah,
actually, I think in 2021 or something, they paid off the whole. He did a speech, and then he paid off the whole class. I think 2021, he paid off all their student loans, right? But
right.
again, a lot of times our people don't see that, so we gotta. I think it's very, very important that we own media, like you're doing here, that we can actually create a narrative because the narrative is like, well, there's more black men in jail than there is in college. That's not true.
Never has been.
Right? There aren't black men in the house. That's not true. It's more black men. I think it's more black men in the household with their kids, probably in history, but that's the narrative they want to crack. I know a ton of amazing black fathers who are doing their best and present in their fathers in their children's life, but it's like
Absolutely.
not the narrative that we're creating. So I think it's super important, and what you're doing is like pivotal to like change that narrative.
So, last question. What responsibility do successful black men have to help inspire and pull other brothers up?
I think it's everything. I think number one, I would say even the term successful, right? I would say number one is I think black men in general have a responsibility to define what success is. That's number one, because I don't think a certain amount of money, certain platforms, cars, like auto, like you can call those things successful if you want and you won't be wrong. But I think the first responsibility is defining success. Because I would say any black man who's listening to this, you are successful in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Are there other levels at different times? Yes. But it's like you are successful. The simple fact that you're breathing right now. Right. So that's number one. And I think as you come to that realization, I think it's super important to share, like sow seeds, like share what you're learning along the way. Like if you're a 9 to 5 guy, you doing your thing, like share, like talk to another brother, right? If we see it, one thing that kind of irritates me sometimes is like when I'm walking and I see a brother and we're about to pass each other and brothers like drop their head or look the other way. I think we have a responsibility to acknowledge that brother because that could be an opportunity to pull another brother. Hey, what's up, brother? I see you. How you doing? What's up, King? I see you. Or we see these youngins, and it's like they got their pants pulled down a little bit. Sometimes we'll automatically go into like trying to teach or scold. Hey man, pull your pants up. It's like, come on, man. It's like you don't even know this brother, first of all. You don't know what this brother is dealing with. What if you just acknowledge him for the king that he is, start a conversation, and even potentially create an environment where he be open to your feedback? But you automatically go into, man, brother got his butt hanging out, his hair nappy, blah, blah, blah. Like, young man don't want to hear that. It's like, what if we just saw, hey, what's up, king? How you feeling? And now that just speaking to him could change his entire day or change his entire life or even change his whole perspective on black men because his dad might have abandoned him when he was a child. And every other black man he's spoken to, teachers or whatever, has always spoke down to him. And now you come and you judging him based on his situation. But again, we have a responsibility to like, hey, what's up, King? I see you. How you feeling, man? You looking good today, bro? Just a little simple stuff.
Absolutely.
I think that all moves us as a culture forward. Even if you never see him again, that could be a total game changer.
Absolutely. And I love the motto of the 100 Black Men of America, which is what they see is what they'll be.
100%.
What they see
100%.
is what they'll be. So we have to expose brothers
Yep.
to people like yourself. And again, that's why I do this podcast,
It's everything.
to create a platform. So yes, you now have access to hear and learn from brothers. All you got to do is take advantage of
That's it. That's it.
it.
So a common question I get is like, Marco, how did you go from selling drugs in the streets to doing what you do now? And the biggest thing I would say is exposure. The grace of God, no, in hindsight, but I think in the immediate, it was the exposure. And it was God aligning these things, but it was exposed. It showed when I got in network marketing, that exposed me to something different. It exposed me to black people and other people doing things at a high level. It exposed me to personal development and just a different way of thinking. It exposed me to guys. One of my mentors used to say, if I make $50,000 in a month, that's a bad month for me. It exposed me to that level of thinking. You're right. It exposed me. I had never even flew in an airplane. It was 25, 26 before I even flew in an airplane. And that exposed me to different regions, then I started going out the country. This exposed me to different things. I used to say I grew up in poverty. Then I went to Africa and I was like, I'll never say I grew up in poverty again, right? Because they have way less than me and they don't even see that they're in poverty, right? So it's just this level of exposure, it just changed the game. I started reading books and then I was like, man, I got an addiction to like reading books and getting new insights. And it's like the level of exposure just changes the game. So I love what you're doing. I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah. So man, this is why I do this show, to showcase and highlight brothers like yourself. So now I want to give you an opportunity to share how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more about your business or whatever you're offering. So here's your opportunity for your 30-second commercial.
Yeah, so I would say a couple things. So number one, if you want to get on the My First Billion newsletter, where I'm documenting the whole process of building a portfolio of companies that does $1 billion a year. It's not a how-to where I'm teaching you how to do it. I'm just sharing with you what's going on, right? So we fired our whole sales team a couple weeks ago. So I talked about that in the newsletter. When we do marketing campaigns, I'm talking about all the stuff that most people don't share on Instagram because it don't meet the highlight reels, right? So you can go to marquelrussell.com. That's MarquelRussell.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, I got a ton of resources at scalemadeeasy.com. Just scalemadeeasy.com. It's a page, tons of tools and so forth and all that you can dive into, all for free. Scalemadeeasy.com.
Sweet. Well, my man, I just got to tell you, man, I'm over here buzzing and excited whenever I see brothers like yourself, man, because again, I don't buy into mainstream media. Black men are actually killing it right now. You just don't see it in mainstream media. And
So
again,
100%.
I love connecting with you. I love how our stories are so similar. And I know that
Mhm.
there are no accidents. You know,
Nope.
everything happens for a reason. And when I saw your LinkedIn post, I said, man, I got to get this brother on. So I want to thank you for, spending an hour with us here on Shatter the Stereotypes and keep doing what you're doing, bro. I
Thank
really,
you.
really honor what you're doing.
Likewise.
Last thing, closing comments from McQuail. What are you going to tell the audience? What do you want to tell them?
I would say we currently live in the best time in the history of the world to be alive. Like, don't let the media, don't let social media, don't let news media Don't let none of this stuff fool you. We literally live in the best time in the history of the world to be alive. If you think about the greats like the Madam C.J. Walkers of the world, the Dr. Martin Luther Kings of the world, the Malcolm X's of the world, these individuals, A.G. Gastons, the Marcus Garveys. If you think about all those individuals who did amazing things, they didn't have Facebook. They didn't have a podcast. They didn't have any of these tools. The thing is, though, as I tell my kids, these tools can be tools or they can be toys. You get to choose which one. If you want, like I love what Michael said. He was like, instead of me blaming racism and all these different things, like let me create a platform where I can have part of the conversation when it's media and create a narrative. You listening to this video, listening to this audio, video, however you're watching it, you have access to these same tools, right? AI, all these different things. It eliminates all excuses and it levels the playing field. You get to choose which side of history you're going to be on.
Can you imagine how many slaves Harriet Tubman could have freed if she had the internet?
Like for real. Like for real. It's like we have all these tools, and a lot of times we just sit and we just consume and we just watch passively
Yeah.
instead of leveraging, these tools.
Well, again, Marquel, I just want to say thank you for spending an hour with us. And again, there are no accidents.
Nope.
I'm sure there's more collaborations that we can do somewhere. I don't know how, but whenever God speaks, we'll listen and
100%.
we'll see what happens. So again, thank you for what you're doing, man, and continued success in everything you do.
Likewise, you too.
So this has been another episode of Shatter The Stereotypes, and I got to leave you with the wisdom of Public Enemy. Don't believe the hype.
I love it.
Don't believe the hype. Black men are killing it. The question is, are you willing to kill it for yourself? We'll see you next episode. Take care.